That's why coffee's for grown-ups. Quiet on set. And action! Hello everyone and welcome back to Action. This week, Scrappy is not here, and we have a guest as well. My friend Kaylee is here. You might recognize her from some of our Huck and Scrappy videos, and she is here to talk about Encanto with us. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people before we start?
I am super cool, and I love movies.
Facts. So let's get started. Scrappy was originally going to be here with us tonight, but since she's not, I do have her notes plus my own notes. Feel free to add anything you want. If you want to add something, just tap me and I'll finish up my thought and you can add it. And then at the end of the video, we'll go into your theories.
Yeah, that's the fun part for me.
Let's jump right into this. This movie was directed by Jared Bush and Byron Howard. It was co-directed by Charisse Castro-Smith, and the screenplay was written by Charisse Castro-Smith and Jared Bush. The story was by Jared Bush, Byron Howard, Charisse Castro-Smith, Jason Hand, Nancy Cruz, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. It was composed by Jermaine Franco, and the producers are Yvette Moreno, Clark Spencer. The associate producers are Nathan Curtis and Brad Simonson, and the executive producer was Jennifer Lee. Would you like to give a brief summary of the movie?
Okay, so I'm really bad at brief summaries, so let's see how this goes. So the basic summary of the movie is there is this giant magical house, and it moves, and it sings, and it dances. Well, it technically doesn't sing, but it dances.
It communicates with the family, though.
Yeah, it, talks and stuff, and it's really, really cool. And we meet Mirabelle, who she then tells us all about how her family is all magical. She goes through all their cool gifts in a really cool song. Then, at the very end of the song, we learn she doesn't have a gift. And suddenly, everyone's sad because she doesn't have a gift. Specifically, her. She is sad because she doesn't have a gift. Soon after that, the youngest child, Antonio, he is about to get his gift, and everyone's super excited, but also super nervous because he is the first child after Mirabelle for this gift-giving ceremony. And at hers, she didn't get one. It was very dramatic, and they show little Mirabelle, and it breaks my heart. She's so small. Anyways, after that, Mirabelle sings this very heartfelt song, and then suddenly cracks in the house. Everything dying, terror, screaming, horrifying. And so she runs back up and is like, guys, the candle almost went. Oh yeah, candle is very important too because it's at the center of the house and it just, that's the magic. Anyways, we'll get into that in the theories because they don't explain it, but theories. So she's like, guys, the candle almost went out, there were cracks, and nobody believes her because when they go out, the house is fine and the grandma is a jerk. That's very important to the story. So after that, Mirabelle is super concerned, super worried. She doesn't quite know what to do. So she decides, oh my goodness, my Uncle Bruno, who we don't talk about, he disappeared, but he used to be able to tell the future. Why did he disappear? So she sneaks into his little door home room.
It's a sand room.
It's huge. They say oh, that's my room. No, it's huge.
Oh, I get it now.
It's a house.
Sand hourglass.
Yeah. Smart.
I get it now. I think we both just connected the dots. We had a moment there where we both realized.
Have a moment. Oh my gosh, but also sand and his things are glass.
Yeah.
His... Oh my gosh!
How long has this movie been out?
A while.
We're connecting all the dots here.
We are so incredibly brilliant.
Continue.
So, she finally makes it up there, and she sees... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I don't know if you can do this in post, Antonio does get a gift, so then she's sad.
I'll probably just leave it there.
Okay. Dang it.
Instead of moving it.
Dang. Okay. Anyways, I forgot to mention Antonio does get a gift, and she's sad because she didn't get a gift, and everybody in the family has a gift except for her now. Anyways, so she finally makes it up there, and
Wait, you're not going to tell them what his gift is?
No, I'm not.
Went to all that trouble.
Nope. So finally, she goes up and finds this broken, shattered prophecy of his. She then puts it together, and they sing this awesome song about how nobody likes Bruno and they don't talk about him because all of his future prophesying stuff was really bad, and he always prophesied bad future. Anyway, so she finally puts it together and she sees herself being the negative of the magic. Like it's her and the house cracking behind her. That's the prophecy, and she's like, oh my goodness, this is very bad. So she shows it to her dad, who then tries to hide it. However, through a really, really bad family dinner, a lot of things happen, and suddenly it is put on the table, and everyone is mad at her, and Grandma's like, you're the reason you're ruining this family, you're ruining this house. And the dad is like, don't you speak to my daughter that way. So after that, she's very sad, and eventually she finds Bruno,
in the walls.
Like, in the wall. Yeah, it's behind a painting, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. So she finds him behind a painting. She's like, you never left, dude. What? And he's like, yeah. So I found that prophecy, and then I got sad. I didn't want to tell them about you because I was worried that they would get super mad at you. And she's like, aw, you are so nice.
And she was like 5 at the time of that prophecy. Yeah, she was
like 5.
So
yeah.
He was like, I can't let them get mad at this 5-year-old child.
That just shows how mean the grandma is, because she would get mad at a 5-year-old child. She did. Anyways, so Bruno is like, yeah, I don't know. And finally, Mirabelle convinces him. She's like, hey, we need another prophecy. Please tell us what to do. So Antonio helps them, and he does another prophecy. And they're able to see, oh my goodness, she actually can heal the magic. Because it's like a 3D little glass thing.
It's like this dinosaur thing I have right here.
Yeah,
like you look at it a different way.
At a different angle.
Yes.
Yes. It's so cool. And so it's like a 3D thing. So she sees the cracking and then the fixing. So she asks him to get another prophecy. And in that prophecy, they follow this butterfly, and the butterfly shows her hugging her older sister, Isabella, and that's what fixes the miracle. Anyway, so she has to go to Isabella and be like, hey, wanna hug it out? However, she has low-key ruined her life just a little bit.
A little bit.
In her whole apologies and in her trying to fix it, she learns that Isabella doesn't actually want to marry the guy that she wants, isn't actually perfect, doesn't want to be like this perfect, pretty little princess, and Isabella, cactus. It's so cool. So she grows flowers, but suddenly there's a cactus, and she's like, this is awesome, and she sings this awesome song, and they do all these cool things where she grows wacky, weird plants instead of perfect little roses. Character development, man. And then finally they hug, the candle burns bright, it's so fun, and then Grandma comes in and ruins it all. Grandma is like, you are a bad influence on your older sister, you are ruining the magic. And finally Mirabelle breaks. She's like, you know what? I'll never be perfect. Oh, I forgot about Luisa's entire thing.
It's okay, Luisa has
issues. She gets sad, and also she kind of starts to lose her powers a little bit.
Because she feels like she's carrying all the family's burdens.
Yeah, because her power is super strength. Anyway, so she's like supposed to be strong. She also has an awesome song. So finally, Mirabelle points out, like, Luisa will never be strong enough, Isabel will never be perfect enough, I'll never be good enough, no one will for you. And then she runs away, the whole thing starts to crumble, but then she gets scared, she almost saves the candle, no, bad. So finally, she runs away. She feels very sad after the entire house is destroyed. And then finally, the grandma finds her by this river that's very insignificant because it's where her abuela died. Very
insignificant means the opposite of what you mean.
It's very significant. Okay, she finally finds her at this river, and it's a very significant river because it's where her abuelo died. And so it's super sad, because finally, the grandma finally opens up to Mirabelle and is like, hey, so this is how your grandpa died, and this is how we met, and it's the cutest song, and it makes me cry a little bit.
Isn't it called, it's like Dos Origatos, right?
Yeah.
Is that the song?
Yeah, and it means like 2 caterpillars, and the caterpillars turn into butterflies, and butterflies are very, very important to the story, specifically the theories about the story. Finally, she understands, they hug, they go back, and they just decide, hey, we're gonna be a normal family, no extra burden upon us because of all our gifts, we're just going to build this house. And at the very end, they give Mirabelle the doorknob with an M on it because she never got her own door. So finally, she put the doorknob in shoosh, magic! Suddenly the magic is back. It's so cool. Everyone is awesome. Mirabelle still doesn't get a gift, and it makes me a little mad, but in my theory, she does actually have a gift, and we'll get to that. Anyway, so that's the end of the movie, and they sing an awesome song, and it's an awesome movie. Sorry that wasn't, like, short, but you know.
I loved it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I thought we should give you the summary because you really love this movie.
I do.
So, and I've got all the research on it, so I wanted to give you a chance to talk before I get into all of this. So, the budget for this movie was estimated to be around $50 million.
Whoa, I can't even comprehend that much money, actually.
I know, and for an animated film, like, that's a lot.
It shows, though.
We've only done we've done 2 other animated films, I think.
Cool.
No, we've done one other one. The other one we did was Snow White, and you go listen to the episode about that, episode 6 of season 1. It's called The One That Started It All.
Yeah, first
And
animated. Cool.
It was the first animated movie ever, so we started off with that one.
Very low, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Definitely
Low
not
for
50 million.
Yeah, definitely not 50 million. It was low for the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you take into account inflation now, it's quite a bit higher. But $50 million for this movie is a lot of money.
It shows, though.
It does.
If you look at the animation, beautiful.
It is a beautifully animated movie. I do miss the 2D animation, but this is a beautifully 3D animated movie. The process of this movie started with Jared Bush, Byron Howard, Clark Spencer, who was the president of Walt Disney Animation Studios. He was the producer at the time. Oh, he still was one of the producers, but he was there at the beginning as the producer. And Lin-Manuel Miranda. So the 4 of them started the whole thing off. Bush and Howard, they teamed up and they knew they wanted a film with character depth, sophistication, without sacrificing the entertainment of it all. They wanted a film that was built from a core that had something to say. And this movie definitely had something to say.
Bro.
Like, the message in this movie is very deep. So I would say they achieved that.
They did.
They did a brilliant job in making a movie that really has a message and something to put out into the world.
And it shows by, like, all the people and all the kids that have latched onto the characters and not just the marketable ones. Yeah. Like, I know they didn't make enough Louisa characters, but kids love her so much. Even though Isabella was supposed to be, like, the more popular one because she's all flowery princess. But, like, the little girls are like, oh my goodness, a big, strong, buff lady. Like, you can just tell that they have, like, the character development and the depth that people just latch onto them and love all of the characters. Like, every single person I know relates in some way to one of the siblings.
At least one of them.
Or 2. Or 7. Or all.
Or all of them.
You know.
Yeah. So, they did a brilliant job in making a movie that achieved what they wanted. And they also knew at the time that they wanted it to be in musical form. So, they then recruited Miranda to join the musical team, to be on the musical team. Bush, Howard, and Miranda then began by talking about the most important things they had in common, and family was the one thing they agreed on. Like, at the top of the list they agreed on was family. Hence the movie being about family. And the 3 of them all have very large, extended families, and because of this, their research started within their own families.
Oh, I can see that, because at least for Lin-Manuel Miranda, I don't know about the rest, but he is Hispanic, and
he's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, and so they ended up in Colombia.
It's a Colombian family, yeah. And they took a look at their large families and how the complex family dynamics of them worked and incorporated them into the movie as they started to develop this idea.
It's so cool. It feels so real.
Yeah, and it all started with their own families.
That's so cool. I want to know if, like, there's a legitimate, like, Mirabelle wandering around or, like, Antonio, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, like, is it real people? I'm sure it's, like,
it's probably
it's all brainstorming, but still, like, is there, like, a little Antonio or, like, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, maybe I didn't find much about it, but, you know, maybe they did base it on people that they know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
They probably didn't want to put it out there, you know, don't want to throw their own family under the bus like that. Like, and there was one central question that the 3 of them wanted to explore when they were making this movie, and that question was, how well do we really know our families, and how well do they know us?
That's so good.
And that question can be so deep, too.
Yep.
And at the time they were pondering this question, they were also wondering where they should have their story take place. Like, where should this story be set? And they talked about setting it in Latin America, and the more they talked about it, the more they wanted to learn about it being Latin America. And especially with the importance of family in the area, because in Latin America, family's a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
So it makes perfect sense that this movie was set there.
Yeah.
And family's a big thing, like, all over, but especially there. Like, you have all these extended families living together, like great-grandma, grandma, mom and dad, aunts, uncles, cousins. They're all in the same house. Like, they just have a different view of it.
Yeah, well, we also see that with Coco. Like, we have several movies that are just about families and just about the importance of family in Latin America because it's so important to them. Like, we can see that with Dia de los Muertos and with just the way that they live their lives, which is so wonderful.
It's the perfect place to set it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same if it was somewhere else.
The place they had the most interest in Latin America was Colombia. Nice. So they took a trip there. And that's what some of my research is on. So, in Colombia is known as the crossroads, where culture, history, music, architecture, all kinds of things in Latin America kind of come together and meet in the middle, you know? So, there's like a bit of everything there. Yeah. So that's another reason why they picked it, because there's a bit of everything there. You can learn a little bit about everywhere in Latin America and Colombia, because it's known as that crossroads, and there's all different kinds of music and architecture and just culture. There's different cultures there that all come together as so cool. One.
Yeah, well, you can see that even just within the family and how diverse they are with Peppa and then like her kids Antonio, and, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're all just
Mirabel's dad
mixed,
and her uncle. Like, it's
very, very different.
Very diverse.
So many cultures. So wonderful.
Yeah. So they had this setting in mind, and they packed their bags, and they took off on a trip to Colombia to start their research. Part of the reason they went there is because they wanted their movie to be as accurate as possible. They didn't want to make one of those movies that was, like, set in a place that they knew nothing about.
Yeah.
Accuracy was very important, and it should be an important thing, because imagine if it wasn't accurate, how many people would be offended by this movie.
Yeah, well, that would be just so rude.
Yeah.
Like, no research? Come on.
So, accuracy was very important to them.
They nailed it.
They nailed
honestly.
it. They really did.
Yeah, my mom is a costumer, and she actually costumes a folk dance team. And she loved the costumes. She could say, oh, this one's clearly inspired, or looks a little bit like Jalisco dancing, or this one looks a little bit like Southern Mexico. Like, there are just so many different dances, and you can see that in the clothing, too. It looks very Colombian, but it also looks very Latin America, just in general. Like, they're all so pretty. They look like they're classic dancing costumes. Like, I just love it, and it's so fun, because I also grew up watching, obviously, the Team My Mother costumes, so it was just so cool to see that on screen and done so beautifully as well.
And the intricate details of those costumes too.
We're gonna get into that.
Wow, we'll get into that in your theories, huh?
Yes, because it's very important in the theories.
Yeah, so we'll save costumes for your theories then.
Yeah.
While they were in Colombia, they learned that the music is a combo of old, new, local, and global. So they have a bit of everything in terms of music there. And something else they got to experience while they were there were places of magic called Encantos. And that's where they got the name of the movie, was from these little places of magic. Now, Encantos are located all over in Latin America, and they can usually be found in places of, like, natural wonder. They're kind of like magic. So in these Encantos, magic happens, and always has happened there. But not like magic like witches and wizards, you know, like Harry Potter and that. Magic tied to emotion and to, like, a literary tradition known as magical realism.
That's so cool.
Yeah. My mind was honestly blown when I learned about this. I was like, that is amazing.
Real magic, real magic.
Real magic.
Oh my goodness.
Real magic.
Real magic. That's so cool.
And I think that's so cool that the movie was named after these little magical places.
For real. That's so cool.
Like, that's a brilliant place to find a name for a movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much all I have on their trip. I couldn't find a lot. You know, Disney likes to keep stuff on the down low, so sometimes their movies are hard to research. But here's some stuff I found. Lynn did a couple interviews about his trip, and I found some stuff about the music he wrote and his experience in Colombia. The rhythms in the music in Colombia were familiar to him, but the instrumentation and orchestration of it were different. So, he's from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So he's familiar with the rhythms of it, but they have a different way of putting things together.
Yeah, I can totally see that reflected in the music, honestly, because the rhythms, like, after saying that, the rhythms do feel familiar, but then, like, the background music and stuff is just so different and jivey. Like, I love it.
So, and to simplify this for those of you who don't speak music, like me,
I don't know music either.
I do musical theater, but, like, I don't speak the language of music.
Yeah.
He said it's like going through your cousin's family picture album and seeing how you are similar and different to them.
Oh, what a good metaphor.
Yeah, I was like, that makes it so much clearer than what I thought. Like, that is a perfect way to explain this to somebody. And the task on this trip, he said, was full immersion in research. So he said they would swap out Puerto Rican cuatro for a Colombian tiempo. I doubt I'm saying that right. I'm probably butchering these names. They would switch those out to make songs accordion-centric. Because the accordion is Mirabelle's instrument.
Yeah. It's in the first song, right?
And she even plays it. So it's like quite literally her instrument.
Yeah.
And there was a song he was talking about, and I'm assuming the song he was talking about was Waiting on a Miracle, that he said was inspired by the style of a music in Colombia called bambuco, which is in 3/4 time. Bambuco is a music similar to the European waltz or polska, though I'm not exactly sure if that's the song he was talking about. It's just a wild guess. So,
but that is the slowest, cutest. Oh, it also could be the one about the caterpillars? The two caterpillars?
It could be that one,
too. It could be that one, too, because that one's more slower and,
It's just speculation. We're just throwing out wild guesses, so don't quote us on that, because honestly, we're not 100% sure if it's either of those songs. But they are the slowest songs in the movie, so...
It's true.
I would guess it's one of them. And then Encanto was in the works for 5 years.
Whoa!
So animated movies are generally in the works for 3 to 5 years, from start to finish, like conception of the idea to finished product.
Yeah.
So this one was just on the longer end. So Lin would beta test the music with his family, with his kids. And Lin's dad went to Colombia with them. And he told them stories and provided information, like a lot of information for the crew. And one of his dad's stories, Lin said, was about his grandmother, Lin's great-grandmother, and how she ran the house. And Lin said that this story ended up being an inspiration for the character Alma, or Abuela, and the way she runs the Madrigal household. And his dad got to see this entire process from start to finish.
Whoa.
Wouldn't that be so cool?
That's interesting.
Like, Lin went on this journey with his dad, and that is the coolest thing. A movie about family
with family. That's so good.
And that's pretty much all I could find on the trip in the short time I had to research, because I thought we were going to film this like the day after I started my research originally, and I just never came back to it to do more. But that's okay, because I want to provide as much time for you as I can at the end for your theories. After the trip, they realized they needed another partner, so the team went through hundreds of scripts and talked to about 20 writers, and they said when they read Charisse's writing, they knew they'd found the right person, and she joined the team, which completed the directorial trio.
Nice.
One of the main goals of this movie was to make sure they represented Colombia accurately in the movie, from the characters and the clothes to the neighborhoods and the houses. Accuracy was a very big deal, which is as it should be.
Yeah, every movie should be like that.
Alright, so on to casting. So before I go into her notes on how this movie was cast, I'm gonna tell everybody who was who in this movie. Yeah. And obviously they're all voice actors because it is an animated film.
Yep.
And IMDb does have it voice in parentheses, which I think is kind of silly because it's an animated film.
What else would they be?
No voice. Just existence. So starting at the top, Stephanie Beatriz is the voice of Mirabelle, Maria Cecilia Botero as Abuela Alma, John Leguizamo? I'm probably butchering these names.
Leguizamo? I don't know.
John Leguizamo as Bruno, Mauro Castillo as Felix.
I just put that together. Anyway,
wait, which one?
Bruno.
Oh, the guy who's Bruno. Oh my gosh, he does! Putting things together this episode, everybody.
Very cool.
Jessica Darrow as Luisa, Angie Cepeda as Julieta. I am genuinely so sorry if I am mispronouncing these names. Carolina Gayton? Is that how you would say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Carolina Gayton as Peppa, Diane Guerrero as Isabella, Wilmer Valderrama as Augustine, Renzi Feliz as Camilo,
Ravi Cabot-Conyers
as Antonio, Adasa as Dolores, Maluma as Mariano, Rose Portillo as Senora Guzman, Nomi Josefina Flores as young Mirabel / town kid, Juan Castano as Osvaldo, Sarah Nicole Robles as Senora Ozma, Hector Elias as Old Arturo, Alan Tudyk as the toucan. He's a bird.
Nice.
Olga Merediz as Abuela Alma's singing voice, Jorge E. Ruiz Cano as Tipo Maestro, Alyssa Bella Candiani as Town Kid, Paisley Herrera as Town Kid, Brooklyn Skylar Rodriguez as Town Kid, and Ezra Rudolph as Town Kid. So there's the cast, and now I'm gonna jump into the notes Scrappy left me. She got this from an interview with Jamie Sparrow Roberts. So, Jamie Spencer Roberts, she started in live action before she started in animation. So by the time she started in animation, she'd only had live action experience. I want to preface these notes with that, because these notes, they kind of just jump right into it. So a Disney casting process for an animated feature film, Roberts did it pretty similar to the way she did a live-action feature film. The casting director, she said, has to intently listen with her imagination to the auditions to hear the truthfulness within the artist's voice. And since we are in the time we are in, and we have the internet, this provides them the opportunity to have recorded auditions sent into them digitally, and they can reach anybody in the world with these auditions. And especially because it's like audio only too. So they have the opportunity to just have these recorded auditions sent to them from anywhere.
Memos.
Voice memo through text message. Casting starts very early on in development, and there are technically 3 different castings in the process of developing an animated film. Well, at least an animated Disney film. For this one, she said the first casting, I guess, is in the form of a table read that is conducted prior to the green light. The second time is during the storyboarding process, and this is where actors' voices are used for internal development of the film, which comes before production of the film. And then finally, they cast the actual voices for the production dialogue, and these are the actors who we hear in the final product of the movie, in the theatrical release, is what it says here.
That's so cool. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I had no idea there were 3 different castings for this.
What a process.
Yeah, that's new to me. Like, that's a lot of casting to do.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's cool. That is a process, for sure.
Usually, all that a casting director sees before casting is like a rough sketch of the characters they're casting. A lot of the time, animated characters are based on the people voicing them. So animation takes place after recording. For auditions, very little of the actual stuff is used for... It says auditions. Oh, very little of the stuff that's actually going to be in the movie is used for auditions, to keep it secret. Disney likes their secrets.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like Avengers. In our last episode of Season 1, Episode 15, about the Avengers, I tell this whole story about Kobe Smulders, who auditioned for Mariah Hill. And it kind of goes into that, secrecy that Disney has. Let's see. We're down to, the final little parts of this. actors have to bring a character to life to get the part. And it's very important. You know, it's easy to bring a character to life in live action, but when you're doing animation, you have to bring the character to life through voice, like just voice. And it's the animator's job to bring them to life through the character. So you have to bring life to your voice and emotion to your voice, but it has to be real too. It's not based on the words of the script, it's based on how they speak.
Yeah, like the intonation and stuff. Yeah.
Like their voice has to be the character.
Yeah, well, because how easy is it for even just us to sound so monotone, but like also we could sound so much more fun, you know? Like even just regularly. Yeah. Continuing on with casting. Casting adults for child voice roles prevents having to recast because a child's voice changes. So if you cast a child and production takes a really long time, as they grow up, their voice changes. Like it gets higher or lower, and you don't want that to happen unless your character also grows and changes with them. Yeah. Have you seen Steven Universe? Some of it. It's so cool because at the very beginning he's super, super small and the voice actor is too, but then by the end of the series, both the character and the voice actor has grown up. And it's really cute. So it works if that's what you're going for. I'm sure they had to kind of think of that on the fly, though. Like, I don't know how long they wanted the series to actually be, so, like, they just had to. But I think it's cool. Yeah, but for things like Encanto... Where that's only 5 years, you can't really... If you're in production for 5 years, and you plan on having the audio recording to go on for a while, it's probably not the best idea to cast a child, because you don't want that voice to end up sounding one way in the beginning and then completely different at the end. Like, it doesn't make sense if the character stays the same age. Yeah, it doesn't work for movies at all. It did work for a series, like a cartoon series, but not for anything like Encanto. Finally, Disney hires authentic voices. Their actors are people whose voices don't really change in the studio. So, like, they hire people who use their real voice. They're not looking for, like, cartoony or animated voices. They're looking for realism. We want you in the studio, not some character. Yeah. Unless it's for like a silly, goofy cartoon, you know? Yeah. That's cool. For something like this, they wanted the actors. They wanted them. So, and you can tell that. Yeah. Specifically, my favorite scene with like the crazy good acting is Mirabelle's Waiting on a Miracle. You can hear, I don't know how she does this at all, because one of the hardest things in acting is to make it seem like you're crying, but even harder is to make it sound like you're crying, and then even harder is to make it sound like you're crying just in your voice. Like, that's so good. And not actually crying. Yeah, and it's so good. Like, she just does such a good job. Also, fun fact, the actress for Mirabelle was in labor during that song. I heard about that. I saw a story about that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Yeah, because it's not her first kid. And, as several of my mom friends have told me, like, after your first kid, you're just not as worried once your water breaks, apparently. And so she, like, her water broke and she was like, I got time. And she just finished it, and they thought she was crazy. She was like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. I got time. I had time. Yeah. I could do it. Yeah. No, I was talking to someone the other day and they were like, yeah, after my water broke, I made myself a sandwich because I knew they weren't going to let me eat at the hospital. Like, they're just chilling. Like, I got time. I've seen stories like that. Like, they're not going to let me eat, so I'm going to eat right now. Yeah. Or, good idea. I'm going to finish this take. And I think it took a couple tries, too, to finish it. Yeah. Crazy. And she was there the whole time. Then she went to the hospital when they finished. And I thought, wow. How? So cool. I don't know. The emotion of the song, plus the fact that she's literally in labor. Alright, so I do have a couple pages left. I'm gonna try to zoom through them. Pick up on the associate production designer, Lorelei Bove. I probably butchered that name. Lorelei Bove. I apologize if I'm butchering these names. So this person, the associate production designer, said that Casita was inspired by traditional Colombian homes from Barrancara, Cartagena, and Salento. Early on in the process of making the film, they talked to Colombian architects to get more information on the construction of these homes. And one thing they learned was that in the coffee region, there are a lot of haciendas with an indoor-outdoor kind of feel due to the weather of the area.
this look was added into the casita design along with the courtyard area where you can see all the doors.
Oh, that's cool.
And that wasn't all they did when it came to the home design. The team also had a botanist consultant so they could learn about the plants that were native to the region. So the detail that went into this, amazing. And it was important to them to accurately reflect the biodiversity of Colombia, which is why they got this botanist to talk to. So just the amount of work, research, and just, wow.
I bet that botanist literally just worked on, well, not just worked on, but worked so hard on Isabella's song.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, I don't know if roses are native to Colombia. Are they?
I have no idea.
She was growing like pretty pink, princessy, classic flowers that we see, and then afterwards she's growing cacti and
it changes.
Fun, crazy, and more native things. So I think that's interesting as well to see the switch of what she's growing.
It is. I didn't even think of that. That's really
right?
cool to think about.
Because it's like those flowers don't look native, and you can tell because they look out of place. Like she's growing like pretty roses or daisies, you know. Which obviously there are a bunch of wildflowers that look like that all across the globe, but still, like, afterwards, she grows more cacti and stuff that's more native. So that's cool.
Yeah. They also had guidance from the Colombian Cultural Trust. This had a group of experts in music, culture, botany, anthropology, architecture, and many other subjects. So the sheer amount of people working on this and the amount of people they got together to make sure they had everything just right and perfect and accurately representing Colombia and the people they wanted to represent is amazing to me. And I think everybody should do it when they make films.
I mean, why would you just make a film and not put this amount of effort in?
Exactly.
Because that's what makes this movie perfect. And it makes it so that the more you learn about it, the more you like the movie. Yeah. There are some that if they do a bad job at research and a bad job at stuff, the more you learn about the movie, the less you like it. But this does the exact opposite.
It does. Like, I had so much fun looking into this movie.
Oh, I bet.
So much fun. And there was a group of employees at the Disney Animation Studio that also helped, and the crew called them Familia. And before there was a story or script, they would all sit and talk about things like family, how they were raised, what their hopes were for the film. And these were the people that also reviewed early versions of the script. And the steps of making animated films go storyboard, live action reference, layout, and final. And we've talked about storyboard and the live action reference before in our episode about Snow White. But we didn't talk much about the layout step. We didn't really talk at all about the layout step. And the final is obviously what we end up seeing on screen in theaters and on Disney Plus, DVDs, all that fun stuff. So, oh, hello. So I'm gonna jump back to casting super quick because I do have a little part on here about it. Well, I guess it's after casting. So after you've cast it, you go from casting to recording dialogue and songs and to provide time for you. I'm not going to go into that really much. And if there are BTS videos on YouTube if you want to watch recording sessions. I watched a couple of them and it's kind of really cool to see.
That is cool.
Yeah, I saw them recording, I think it was We Don't Talk About Bruno because that's the most popular song. So when you look up BTS, that's the one you get. And this film, being a musical, it has choreography in it, and usually on musical projects, the choreographer is brought in after the layout has already been determined, and we'll talk about the layout in just a little bit, but that wasn't the case for Encanto. The choreographer was brought in before layout. The choreographer was Jamal Sims, and animation reference and dance consultant Kai Martinez. They came onto the scene before layout and began before music tracks had been put down. Because of this, Jamal was able to see the storyboards and get to know the personalities of each character as he designed the dance sequences. And it was actually his idea to do the dance for We Don't Talk About Bruno in one take.
Oh my gosh.
If you'll notice in the movie, it's done in one take.
That's so cool. I never noticed that it's one take.
You have the transitions and stuff, but it looks like it's done in one take. And there's live action reference, and even that's done in one take.
In one take? That's so cool.
And it is really cool to see. And it's so much fun to watch them. Dang. And this movie was done during COVID because I remember they were wearing masks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And for the choreography, they brought in additional Latinx dancers to help bring it to life. So this dance was done with live action reference, and I'm sure a lot of the other choreographed dances were too.
For sure.
But obviously, because this one's the most popular, it's the one like that everybody has seen.
Yeah.
And when the animators saw the choreography, they wanted to start working on the scene right away. At that time, they were so early on in the process that all they had was Lynn's demo with him singing all of the parts. I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of want to hear that.
I want to hear that.
I'm sure we could find it on YouTube.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Alright, I'm gonna continue on with this. They put a team of animators on it, even though they hadn't really gotten to the parts they needed to be to start this. They put a team of animators on it anyways, and this was right as layout began. And because of this, there was a new process for the scene. And it went, animators took the choreographed video provided by Kai and Jamal and roughly translated the movements of the dance to the characters. And to do this, they would have to pay close attention to the foot placement to provide realistic working characters in the 3D environment of the animation. Then, director of cinematography and layout Nathan Warner and his team could then go in and shoot it more like a live action. So they'd go into it and I guess with like, I don't know how it works, but they go in and they move the animation around like there's an actual camera there around their 3D environment and film the animation like it's a live action, but in animation. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like...
That makes sense theoretically.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I don't know how it works. That's all the information I could find on it. And before we go any further into this video, I want to talk about the layout with you guys. So the layout artists work from storyboards, and they use the film's characters, sets, props, and cameras to stage, block, and shoot the film shot by shot. In layout is where you get a rough animation of the film. Not a rough cut, a rough animation of the film. It involves a little bit of animation, lighting, editing, modeling, lots of composition. Layout artists follow the storyboards. Sometimes they'll break away from it and come up with something of their own to put into it. I'm not sure how often that occurs though. In short, layout is where the first 3D representation of the storyboard is made in full cinematic form. When a shot is done in layout, it goes to animation to be animated, then returns to layout finaling, where the shot gets cleaned up and perfected, then approved by directors and department heads. So it goes layout, animation, layout, finaling, where they take what the animators did and kind of just make it look pretty.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I've got a few quick facts that I'm going to share with you guys and go into box office and give you the awards and stuff, and then we'll hand it off to you for your theories.
Yay! So
some quick facts about this film. Encanto was shot in 24 FPS. Each frame was on screen for 0.04 seconds. It runs for a total of 90 minutes and 28 seconds, and it was made up of 40 sequences ranging from 24 seconds to around 6 minutes long. Each sequence is made up of many shots. A shot is 0 to 30 seconds long, and Welcome to the Family Madrigal contains 82 shots and runs for 4 minutes and 3 seconds in the film. It has a total of 133,709 frames, and there are 267,418 total frames rendered for stereo 3D. Finally, on to box office and awards. Encanto hit theaters on November 24th, 2021. It was distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. The domestic box office is $96,093,622. The international box office is $160,693,120, and the worldwide box office came to $256,786,742. So then the awards, Encanto has a total of 83 nominations and 46 wins. So because it has so many, I'm only going to go through the Academy Awards that it's won and been nominated for, which is a total of 3. So it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film. That award went to Jared Bush, Byron Howard, Yvette Moreno, and Clark Spencer. and it was nominated for the Oscar for Best Achievement in Music Written for Motion Pictures Original Score for Jermaine Franco. And it was also nominated for Best Achievement in Music Written for Motion Pictures Original Song for Lin-Manuel Miranda for the song Dos Oruguitas. And there you go. That is all that I have and all that Scrappy had on Encanto. So now I'm going to hand the rest of the time over to you for your theories.
I'm nervous.
Tell us everything. We're all listening.
Okay, I'm trying to think of how to gather my thoughts. Okay, so first we're going to kind of start with Abuela and why she is the way she is, because that's so important. Because at the very end of the movie, they show in a very sad montage that she falls in love, she has triplets, and then they're chased out of their town. I'm not sure if it's conquistadors, soldiers. On the internet, it just said mysterious soldiers or corrupt Colombian soldiers. But they were chased out of town, which was very real for so many people in Latin America at so many points in time, honestly. And so they were chased out, and the whole village was running away. She is carrying these 3 babies and a lantern, and her husband sacrifices himself to let the rest of them run across. And in her moment of just pure pain and sadness, she cries out, and the candle suddenly has magical etchings in it, and then glows bright, and the mountains all around the village grow, and then eventually she places the candle in the middle of the village, and that's where Casita comes from. Suddenly Casita is just born. It's magic, obviously.
It's like a sentient being.
It is. It's so cool. And I think I know why it is a sentient being, because I believe that Casita is a reincarnation of the grandfather.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't it make sense? So the second the grandfather dies, basically with his last dying wish, he grants them a candle for protection, which is so obvious. And he basically, with his dying breath, he wishes that they have all that they need. So he gives them this candle, he gives them a home, and then his spirit kind of imbues into the home.
That makes so much sense.
And that's why they love the Casita so much, and that's why the Casita loves them so much. If you notice, throughout the whole movie, Casita is protecting Mirabel and everybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's so good. And so that's why I think the magic dying was because of the contention. It's because everybody was hating on each other for a minute. And he was like, y'all are not supposed to do this. Bad, bad, bad. And so, but then, after that, if you look at everybody's gifts, it's all something that they need in that moment. So, Julieta, her gift was very important because she could bake stuff and heal people. That's incredibly important after being attacked by a bunch of soldiers and abandoned in, this little place, So next is Peppa, what was super important. Her whole thing is that she could control the weather with her emotions, which was very important because then she could make it rain, she could help the crops, etc. And then last was Bruno, because there was always that fear and uncertainty of the future, and so he provided sight into the future. However, here's where it all starts to go wrong, because Abuela, in her fear, in her trauma, in her sad life, starts to rely on these gifts more than loving her children. And that's what the movie is kind of about. Mm-hmm. So, after those 3, we get into the next generation. And the next generation, I believe Isabella's the oldest? Yeah? She's Julieta's oldest.
I think so.
So, Isabella is the oldest, and she is the perfect child, the pretty princess. She's going to get married, continue on the family, help the family grow. And so, because after they get through those 3 basic survivals, they have food, they have, good weather, and they have, a sight into the future. It just kind of makes sense. After that, they get the perfect child who's meant to extend the family. She's beautiful. She'll have children. After that, they then have Luisa. Her gift is that she's super strong. She's able to help build up the whole place. She's strong. She's buff. She can help people do a bunch of things that others can't. So then we have Mirabel. But we're setting her aside for a minute. So then after that, we have Dolores, I believe, is the next oldest. And she has the power of hearing. So she can hear pretty much everything that goes on in the building. So this is where the gifts kind of start to be used by Abuela in the wrong way. If you see, Abuela asks Dolores what, I don't remember his name, but Isabella's boyfriend, basically, that guy, what he was talking about, and she was like, oh, he wants 5 kids. So Abuela is using her power for her to know things, as well as she's using Luisa's power for her to do things, to move things, and as well as she's basically flaunting around Isabella and being like, look at this pretty girl, you know, like this, she's the perfect one. And then she's doing the same with her children. Peppa always has to be happy. Julieta has to help everybody, and she basically ran Bruno out of town. So after Dolores is Camilo, and his power is shapeshifting, so he can turn into anybody else that he wants to be. So he can turn into Dolores to get seconds, or any of the other villagers, like the tall villager to help hang up a thing, you know? And then after that finally comes Antonio, and he gets the gift of talking with animals. So that's super exciting, because that is the first gift that kind of is for himself, if that makes sense. So if we look at all the gifts, they're all either for Abuela, or they do a good job at reflecting different relationships in different families. So I know a lot of people relate to Isabella because a lot of people feel like they have to be perfect, or a lot of people see that dynamic within themselves. Or a lot of people relate to Luisa because she has to be strong. She has to carry the burden of everything. And then a lot of people also relate to Dolores because they just feel like everybody tells them things and they're just meant to keep secrets and they can't quite live their own life. And then a lot of people also feel like Camilo, where they have to be somebody else to be accepted. They have to change themselves. So a lot of these are showing both good family dynamics and bad family dynamics, and each of their different powers reflects struggles and hardships, as well as also the opposite of that, good things. I see that especially with Peppa, because she always has to be happy, because if she's not happy, it's raining and it's sad. And they do touch on that at the end of the movie when Bruno's like, let it go, you know? Because he's like, look, it's okay. Like, you can cry. And I feel like a lot of people do need to hear that. So I really like that message.
You've really put a lot of thought into this, and I really admire that.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like the movie. I feel like it's so cool and that's why people latched onto the characters. Because it shows the bad side of the family dynamics and the good side. So, now we're gonna get into Mirabel. And why I think Mirabel does have a gift. Well, we're going to go over two theories.
I point something out about her?
Yeah.
Her name, Miracle, and Mirabel.
Yeah, right? It's so cool. It's it's so similar.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think there are 2 different theories. One of them is that Mirabel does have a gift. And the other one is that Mirabel is meant to take the grandmother's place, the abuela's place, in the family once the grandmother passes away. And you can see both sides. So, the first one I'm going to go over is her taking the abuela's place. We see this in her mending all her relationships. We don't really see her go and mend her extended relationships, but we do with her 2 sisters. So, for Luisa, she goes, talks to her, says, hey, you need to chill out. You need to stop being strong. Do you need a hug? You know, like and she gives her a hug. And I think it's interesting because that happens before she sees the second prophecy with Bruno. So what if she actually had to give both of her sisters a hug and she just didn't know because she'd already given Luisa a hug. So they didn't need to show that.
It only had to show her the second half.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of the prophecy, but she just didn't know it. But secondly, eventually she was able to go to Isabella and be like, hey, let's hug it out. But obviously, Isabella was like, I never wanted to marry that dumb hunk. And they get into that. And she realizes, hey, like, my sister isn't this perfect, dumb little princess. Like, she really has feelings. and she doesn't want to be perfect, and like this is put on her by Abuela. And that's why at the very end, when Abuela is like, hey, like this is what happened to your grandfather, like she kind of apologizes. I don't know. No justice for Abuela because she didn't really apologize, and I do not like her. So
you know those memes where it has like it's got 9 pictures and then
yeah, it's like not
middle,
you.
Not you. So I saw one that says thank you for being the best Disney grandmas, and in the middle it's Abuela, not you.
Not you. Yeah, I can see that.
I thought it was funny. I saw that one today actually.
That is funny. I can see that. But yeah, so that's why at the very end it's so important that Abuela and her hug and figure it out. And if you notice, there's a butterfly motif. So there's the butterfly on the candle. There's the butterfly when her husband dies. There's the butterfly when Abuela and Mirabel finally meet up. And I feel like that represents the magic.
And there are butterflies on Mirabel's skirt, aren't there?
There are! So, now we're gonna get into my second theory. And this theory is that Mirabel does have a gift. It just shows itself in a different way. And that's why she doesn't have a door, and that's why it faded. So, basically, my thing is, so if you look at everybody's outfits, they put a lot of effort into their outfits. Isabella's outfit is covered in flowers. Luisa's outfit literally has dumbbells on it.
Yeah.
Julieta has, like, little pastries on hers. Bruno has hourglasses. Peppa has, like, rain and sun. Camilo has little chameleons, which his name, I think that's so fun. Mm-hmm. And then Dolores, I think it has like the little sound wave, like, you know, like
hers had sound waves.
Yeah, it's like the Wi-Fi, but like tilted. And then Antonio, he had a leopard on his shirt, even before he got his gift. But if you look at Mirabel, she has so many different things sewn onto her skirt and onto her shirt, including butterflies, flowers, and I think she has a dumbbell on there as well as an hourglass. Like, she has the entire family on her skirt.
Represented on her.
Yeah, which that can lend its case to saying, hey, she's here to take over after Abuela dies, and she's meant to be the head of the house, and that's why she doesn't have a room. But I think this makes a case that she does have a power, and here's what I think her power is. I think her power is to take away and give the magic. So I think she has the power of the magic. Because if you notice in the whole show, she's the only one that outright talks to Casita, as well as she's the only one that Casita really, like, interacts with like a person, kind of.
Yeah.
Secondly, after she talks with Luisa and sees how hard of a time she's been having, suddenly Luisa's powers stop working, and she's being forced to take a break. And I think Mirabel doesn't realize it, but she took away her powers from her for a minute. Versus, on the other hand, when she then goes to talk to Bruno and asks him for another prophecy, he's like, I can't do it without, like, my room. Like, I don't know how to do it without my room. But she finds a way, and she's like, you can do it. You got this, bro. And he got this, bro. Like, he's got it. And he figures it out. And then again, when she goes and talks to Isabella, her powers grow. Like, she sees...
They're, like, magnified.
Yeah. So she sees, she needs to grow. Whereas Luisa needed rest. She needed rest and recreation. She took her powers away. And I don't think she did any of this knowingly. But with Isabella, she is like, oh my goodness, she needs to grow out of this. She can be so much more. She brought out the prickly side of her, thus the cactus. And then once she start being like, oh my goodness, like, look at this, look at how cool, then suddenly they have like the flowers with the exploding paint colors and all the fun stuff, and like her powers are growing and getting stronger. And then immediately after that, Abuela comes and blames her for the magic and why it's all crackling. But that's when Mirabel snaps, and she's like, nobody will be perfect for you. And that's when she says, no, you are ruining this family. And that's when she basically takes the magic from everybody, because it's just so hard, and suddenly the casita is crumbling, and all of that. And she's like, oh my goodness. And so then at the very end, the last little thing that I think plays into this theory is, at the very end, they decide to just build the house together. She teaches all of them how to live without magic, without their powers, because the rest of them aren't used to it. She is. But she teaches them how to all live without their powers and have a deeper understanding of who they are without their powers and with their powers, because it takes away that extra pressure and the extra add-on. And they are able to become their own people, separate from their powers, and then once they get them back, they're enhanced without powers instead. Versus as before, the powers were sometimes a negative thing. Like we see that with Peppa or Luisa. So then at the very end, they give her a doorknob, which is so sweet because she doesn't get a door. So they finally give her a doorknob and it has an M on it. And finally she stares at the doorknob, she puts it back in, bam, Casita comes back to life. She's given the magic back. She realizes that, like, she has a place here, and even though she doesn't have a gift, which I think she does, she just doesn't realize it, even though she doesn't have a gift, she has a place here, and all of her family members are important with or without the gift. And once everybody realizes that, she's then able to give everybody the magic back. And I think at the end, both of those theories kind of go hand in hand, because at the end, she's going to be the head of the house. And she's going to be deciding, like, oh, hey, man, you need a break. And then maybe the powers will start to go away. Like, we don't know what happens in the future, but I just think that's such a cool theory. And I feel like there are lots of things to back it up.
Yeah, that was really deep.
I love this movie so much. It's such a good movie. Because if you look at all of the powers, each of those could represent, like, a weakness that somebody has. Or, like, they could represent, like, childhood trauma. Or they could represent a strength. You know? I just feel like it's so cool because you can just relate to each of the characters. And I love how each of the characters' personalities coincides with their powers, but also then their weaknesses coincide. And it's just, it gives them so much depth. And then, and then you add on the cool theories on top of it. It's so good.
It gives the characters each their own, like, personal story.
Yeah, that you could latch on to personally and love. Like, I feel like that's why I remember before Encanto came out, Luisa's song was all over TikTok. And it was like, if this is on your For You page, that means that you were the eldest sibling with way too much to carry on your chest. And it was like, oh my goodness, you know, like, and then with Isabella's song, it's like, we don't have to be perfect. And people can just kind of understand themselves better through the characters. So.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you would like to share? Or is that everything you got?
I feel like we went over everything.
I think we've hit everything we needed to hit in this episode.
In Encanto.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you all so much for listening, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. Thank you for coming and recording with me tonight.
That was
and
so
for
fun.
Those amazing theories. Those were amazing. I love the thought that you've given it.
I love
and the
this
depth
movie so
that
much.
these theories have. They have real, like, they really could be.
Yeah, true.
And who knows, maybe one day they'll be confirmed. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Woo.
And thank you guys for listening. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on whatever you're listening to us on. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere. You can find us anywhere. Follow us on our socials on Instagram and TikTok. You can follow us at actionpodcast.cs, and on Twitter you can follow us at actionpodcastcs. And we will see you all in the next episode.
Woo.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.